Hi everybody, my name is Max Simon. This is what I do. I get up and I transform audiences. I have a really great story, and before I share with you my story, I actually want to set an intention, 2 intentions, because I've come to realize that that is the clear guiding force behind everything that becomes created. So in the business world, we call that executive strategy. But in my world, I call it intention, and that's really the only thing that creates the world in which we live. So I have 2 intentions. One is, I want you to feel what I feel. And I hope that through what I tell you, you actually feel how I feel, because I feel great. And my second intention is, I want to collaborate and work with every person in this room, because I have something that is of value to every person in this room. So do you feel me?
Yeah.
Excellent. So here's my story. It's getting more adventurous by the day. I was born into a really interesting family. My mom meditates for 5 hours a day. Still. And so when I was 4 years old, I got my first meditation technique. And in fact, it was so much a part of my upbringing that my mom told me, if you meditate, you will always get what you want. And so I can't help but tell you, I've always been a little bit of a prankster. And I remember very clearly this one day where I was supposed to be getting ready to go to school. And my mom comes in, and I'm sitting there meditating, and I'm like, 6 years old or something. And she's like, Max, what are you doing? Get ready to go to school. I said, oh, I'm meditating, Mom. She says, why are you meditating? I said, I'm just trying to get what I want. She says, what do you want? I said, I want to get a cold so I don't have to go to school today. And so I was raised in this very unique kind of environment where I had this spiritual foundation. But then, who remembers what happened when you hit about 13 or 14 years old? Is there anything that sticks out in your mind? Remember that time?
It's not in your mind.
Yeah, it's not in your mind, right? It's in your body. So this little thing happened in my body called puberty. And all my friends are growing and I'm not. And my skin is getting worse and worse, and yet my hair is getting bigger and bigger. And I'm like, who am I? And I spent 7 years of my life feeling completely miserable. Anybody have that story happen to them? And so around 20 years old, I have this spiritual foundation, this kind of mastery of teachers. My father is Deepak Chopra's partner. And so I had that, and yet also there was a part of me that was confused, and there was a part of me that just had this strong, driving, entrepreneurial motivation, this inspiration to create abundance for myself. So in college, I'm having this conversation. What do I want to do? I'm spiritual and want to make money. So I chose the most spiritual profession known to man. I became a loan officer. Because you all know, right? Loan officers, they're the most spiritually evolved people on the planet. And I realized actually that I just wasn't ready to be so into the business realm yet. And I did what probably everybody in this room has done at some point in their life. They slaved themselves into the longest work hours that they possibly could, chasing that goal of being an entrepreneur. Because quickly as I got into that, my desire to be spiritual got replaced by my desire to have a Ferrari. And so it took me a couple years, and even at the age of 20, I was actually the lead loan officer in a company of 37 people, making almost $10,000 every other week at 20 years old. But I was so disjointed, so out of who I really was, so I quit. And I said to my dad, what do I do? And he said, listen, dummy, go back to your roots. So I started meditating again, and I started coming back into who I really am. And that opened up an entire world for me. And through that, at the age of 22, I became the youngest yoga, meditation, and Ayurveda teacher in the Chopra Center's history. I spent the next 4 years traveling around the world alongside Deepak Chopra and my father, teaching thousands of people meditation, yoga, and Ayurveda. I became a master at guiding people to the core of who they are and helping them unwind the layers of who they're not so that they could live their most fulfilling life. And yet there was a really interesting thing that happened. I was 24 years old, I was on the road, I was in Arizona, I just taught a yoga class for 350 people, and I got off stage and I realized I had become my father's mini clone. I was walking like him, I was talking like him, I was dressing like him. I was like, who? I'm you. I'm not me. So I quit again. I did some soul searching, and you know what I found out? I found out that these tools are universal. These tools of meditation, of breath, of some of these really beautiful awareness techniques. They're technologies to help you find yourself, to create a sense of clarity, of balance, of focus. And yet the way that they have been packaged in the world completely turns off everybody that's not already in that world. People that don't do yoga don't really get inspired by seeing somebody twist their leg around their head. Right? All you think is, I can't do that, so I'm not even going to take a step. So I made it my mission to start asking the right questions. Asking the right questions. Not only who do I want to be, but what can I contribute to this planet? And what came forth to me as I became the young conscious expert. I started looking at what is the opportunities out there. And the opportunities are that, one, we have 70 million people, now the second largest demographic, entering the world in a strong way. Gen Y, the millennials, this bunch of people who are a distinctly different, unique culture. And I became an expert at looking how to motivate, inspire, encourage, and integrate these people into not only my organization, but into organizations around the world. And simultaneously, you guys ever heard this word stress? Has anybody heard of it before?
Yeah.
Do you ever feel that way? Because what I've found through asking questions is that we are living in a world that is more stressed out than anybody can remember. And there's an interesting thing that's happened, right? This whole conference is devoted towards ecological sustainability, towards creating a better world. And so we have the most motivated and inspiring people on the planet doing good, and yet human sustainability has been lost. And yet all of a sudden, even though we're making this amazing, necessary global impact, people are more disjointed, more disconnected, more stressed out than ever. So I've created an organization, a movement, that is bringing these tools and techniques to the world. And that means that we have developed programs for the corporate world, we've developed programs for my generation, and we've developed programs for anybody that's inspired to live authentically. Because that's what these tools do. Forget the spirituality element for a moment. Forget all the other new age things that have come out, which are real, but might not appeal to you. We've created a movement, an organization that inspires you to be clear, to be grounded in your own authenticity, to be absolutely established in who you are, so that when you show up in your work, in your life, in your relationships, you show up so perfectly you that your story unfolds exactly how you want it to be. So that's what I do.